Hey, this is Chuck, and you are listening to Fans with Bands, the podcast where we talk to the fans and the bands they dig about life, music, and whatever the hell else we want to talk about. Today on Fans with Bands, we're talking to the Idiot Kids. Check it out. All right. Hey, this is Chuck with Fans with Bands, and I'm talking to John Michael from the Idiot Kids. John Michael, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. So I got your press release for Wilted Bloom and also for White Flags, and I checked out the music, and I was like, man, I love the energy and the power in those tunes. And I was like, I got to talk to you guys. So I'm so happy that you're here.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having us or having me. You guys
Yeah,
couldn't make it today.
yeah, no worries. That's good though. So you got the new album called Chapels, which is coming out
Mhm.
on December 1st. And like I mentioned, those two were kind of the lead singles coming off that album. You were gracious enough to let me check out the rest of the album, and it's fantastic. It's
Awesome.
so good. Um, but I'm wondering, how do you feel the new music on this album compares to like your earlier EP and maybe even some of those early singles like Skeleton Boy?
Yeah. So the early songs were um, well, we had kind of like I guess sort of like a demo album that we ended up scrapping that were songs that we did from like 2011 to 2015 or so.
Okay.
Um, and then we ended up kind of scrapping those because we hadn't really found like I guess our sound at that point. We hadn't found exactly where we wanted to go with it. And so those early singles and like Skeleton Boy and Currents and that the first self-titled album was us kind of like, okay, we finally have how we want to sound. It kind of like all started falling into place. But the songs were kind of more, I don't know, they were written over a longer period of time about many different subjects and everything. And when it comes to Chapels, Chapels is a little more focused, I
Okay.
would say, as far as like the songwriting goes. It all kind of deals with this with similar themes, um, mostly revolving around like trauma from childhood and how that affects you growing up and how you deal with that. So yeah, I'd say this album, and then the EP in the meantime was kind of like me kind of starting to more fully embrace like my queer identity and kind of writing from that perspective.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, it's been kind of like a progression of going inward,
Okay.
going more raw and introspective. And that's this album is definitely about as raw and introspective as I
Yeah.
think I could have gotten.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, there's like I said, there's that energy and that power. There's also just this kind of um, there's a bit of viciousness to it. You know, it's got a really good. I think you do a great job of mixing, like making the tunes accessible. They have like a great song structure. They're very approachable, but then there's also quite a bit of like ferocity in some of the especially the vocal delivery. I love it. I think it's fantastic, and the guitars. Um, but speaking of the new album, I was really intrigued by a song called "Spare Room." I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about that song and what was the inspiration for it.
So Spare Room, that's second to the last track on the album, and that was a sort of a queer love song, which I had never really done before. Um, and It was a song I wrote about someone that I was seeing at the time, and um, yeah, it's kind of like that feeling of waiting, not knowing like what could or will happen, but finding like a solace in that and a comfort in that, just knowing that like you shared these moments with another person. So yeah, that's kind of where that came from. I mean, that song started as a piano song. Um, yeah, that I just wrote years ago. Um, and then when we were coming to do the album, I had always kind of wanted to do a version of it with the band. And yeah, it's a little bit more of a departure from what we normally do. It's a little slower. It was
Yeah.
inspired by I was listening to a lot of Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground at the time, so it had that kind of feel. Um, yeah, it's just kind of that feeling of longing and um, yeah, kind of like yeah, I guess that's it's the feeling of longing for something.
Yeah, it's a great tune. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like a very early Radiohead.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Radiohead's definitely huge influence on me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. The
ever since I was
especially
in like seventh grade.
yeah, the melodies in there and even some of your vocals in there are really it definitely reminded me of like Pablo Honey.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I was wondering about another tune. You know, it's probably my favorite song on the album, and it's called White Flags. And that was the first single that you had.
Yeah.
Um, can you give me the backstory on that song? How did you come up with that, and what was the inspiration?
So that was actually my partner Casper, who's an artist. Um, he had written something for a college course, and he had a line about a white flag and about surrendering.
Yeah.
So I really liked that idea, and so I wanted to write a song based around that. I'm mounting a white flag to my headboard was the line, and I was like, that's the imagery, and that is just
Yeah.
so good. I'm like, I'm taking that, and I'm going to write something about it. Um, yeah, so it originally started as a different topic, but the more I kept writing about it, the more I've always dealt with anxiety and um, mental health issues. So along with that, a lot of times comes insomnia. So growing up as a teen, I hardly ever slept um, up until really the last couple years. I always had issues with that. So that song was written mainly about again surrender of fighting those racing thoughts that just do not stop at night.
Yeah.
Kind of once the day has quieted down and you're just alone with yourself, my brain just starts firing. And yeah, it's just that feeling of like hopelessness where like you're stuck in this spot and like you'll kind of just do anything just to fall asleep. Yeah, so it's just kind of like surrendering to the Sandman or God or like whatever you
Right.
can to like I just need to go to sleep. But I mean you could take it in any direction. It could be about addiction, it could be about whatever it is that you're struggling with that you're trying to get out of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like that idea of um, waving the white flag in war and applying that to something else.
Yeah, it's great imagery to use. And
Yeah,
like you said, it can apply to a bunch of different topics. So that's
right.
cool. Very cool. Um, what's your favorite song on this album? Do you have a favorite?
I think it's probably Chapels, which is why I ended up um, naming the naming the album after it. And that was just because at the core of this album, it kind of just all boils down to religious trauma, which uh, I've realized over since COVID. Um, I definitely became very introspective at that point because I wasn't leaving the house.
Yeah.
And then the last couple of years, just really dealing with like I had a lot of like internalized homophobia against myself, and a lot of things that I was just brought up. Um, I was brought up in the church. My father was a pastor. His dad was a pastor. His dad's
Okay.
dad was a pastor. Um, and I knew I was queer from a very, very young age. So there was a lot of parts of my life where it was about hiding and it was about stifling the feelings that I always had because I was told it was wrong or unnatural or whatever.
Right.
Um, so Chapels was um, written about when I had first come out when I was 20. I went to the church that my parents were going to, and they had this sort of like wedding chapel off to the side.
Right.
Um, and I just went in there by myself and started sitting at the piano, and I was playing this tune from David Lynch from Eraserhead. It's called like The Lady in the Radiator. It's that in heaven everything is fine, and I just kept playing that. and just kind of started uncontrollably weeping. And I just had this like overwhelming feeling of like, oh, okay, this is who you are. God doesn't hate you. No one hates you. It is what it is. So I wanted to write a song that kind of conveyed that to, whoever was listening. Really, all the songs I write are very like kind of journal entries, very cathartic for me. So it's just something I was feeling at the time, and I was like, I just need to get this out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I wanted to name the album after that because like all the other songs that deal with sex or drug addiction or relationships, a lot of those experiences were either shaped or yeah, were kind of shaped by my religious trauma, whether I was
Yeah.
dealing with or not dealing with it.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I would say that's definitely my favorite because it's the most personal to me, and I think it kind of wraps up uh, the the feeling of all the other songs. Like they kind of culminate into that song. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
So,
I'd say that's probably my favorite.
so do you feel that, from having to, as you mentioned, like the songs are like journal entries.
Mm.
Do you feel that this album has helped you like kind of recover from some of that trauma that you dealt with?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially through lockdown in 2020 is like I think like a lot of people we all lost it.
Yeah.
Being
Yeah.
stuck home alone, and
Right.
um through that I learned out of necessity. I was like, okay, well, I need to continue to write and I need to continue to play music, but I can't play with my band. So I taught myself, I took some like online courses on how to like record and mix and use Logic on my laptop. And so I spent most of my time um, learning about that. And through that process of being stuck at home and also like just kind of dealing with like, oh, mortality is real.
Yeah.
And
Right.
like that being a very constant thing in everyone's mind, it definitely had me deal with some unresolved trauma that I hadn't dealt with before. So those two things of me learning how to record and mix, and also dealing with these unresolved issues, kind of uh, yeah, that's what became this album. Once we started getting back together, the band, I was like, well, let's start like recording some practices and see how it sounds. And it was sounding okay. So I was like, all right, well, let's try and do a like full on DIY album.
Yeah.
Um, so we had a couple songs from the EP that we recorded in February of 2020. So it was like days before everything shut down.
Right.
Um, so I was like, well, let's kind of branch off of that because I know I want some of those songs on the album. Yeah, and then it just kind of took on its own shape. And because these songs that I was writing were way more personal, or songs that I had written in the past that were about very like kind of uh yeah, personal things to me. I was like, okay, this is very scary and very scary to try and do, but um yeah, I have to try it.
Yeah.
So we recorded it in the basement of our drummer's apartment, and yeah, I just kept mixing and mixing until it sounded right, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, so this sounds how I want it to. Let's get all the other songs finished.
Right.
So yeah, it was a long process, but it was really rewarding once we finally got it figured out.
Yeah. No, it sounds good. It sounds really good. I mean, I
Yeah.
like the mix came out really well, I think. It's uh good, sometimes you can get a kind of a mixing of like, too much not enough vocals, not, drums are too
Right.
hot, whatever. But it sounds really
Yeah.
good. I was curious
Thank
about the album as far as the songwriting. Again, mentioning that they were kind of like, journal entries.
you. Mhm.
What is your songwriting approach like? Do you try to think of a theme that you want to write about, and then craft some music that goes with it, or is it more come up with some sounds that you like, a song structure you like, and then say, oh yeah, I feel this with this song.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on the song. There are some songs that started as, me just fooling around on guitar or piano. And I was like, okay, I like this. I like this structure. This
Hmm.
could be something. But I'd say the majority of it is like for my day job, I've uh, basically just do delivering. The last couple of years, I've been delivering for Grubhub, and then prior to that, I was a pizza delivery person. So a lot of what my songs were I'm just driving around. I was smoking cigarettes. I quit since COVID, but like driving around smoking, listening to music, and just kind of like writing down what I see or what I think about while listening to other bands and stuff. So I had I have this folder that was just filled with scraps of paper and bits of receipts or cardboard that I found, cigarette packs, whatever,
Yeah.
that I would jot down a line. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I like the wordplay of that, or like, I like that idea. And then more recently, it's just my notes app on my phone for the last few years. It's just filled with random little bits and pieces. So it's usually like, I mean, sometimes I think it's kind of ridiculous and kind of corny. And I think of like that movie Walk Hard,
Oh yeah.
where he's like, he'll like look off into the distance and you're like, oh, walk hard. And then he thinks about it like, oh, that's a song. But that does happen a lot where it's like, like that Wilted Bloom song, our latest single, the I Miss the Cigarette. I literally just saw some girl driving in a VW Bug next to me smoking a cigarette. It was like high 70s, windows down, blaring music. And I was like, oh, I missed that so much. Um, and I was like, that sounds like a song.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, that was the jumping off point for that, was just like, I miss not so much the actual addictions, but I miss those times and those feelings I had on those substances.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that's usually where it starts, is like I come up with a line or I come up with an idea and I just jot it down. I have hundreds that I've never even touched, but like you never know.
Right.
Or sometimes like during COVID, I was sitting around flipping through my notes. I'm like, oh, that could be a song, that could be a song. And some songs are a couple different ideas I smashed together. So yeah, the writing process is definitely always different, but it usually, I like to stem it as a jumping off point. I like to jump off from like something that happened organically, whether it was I saw something, I observed something, or I just sat down and started playing.
Right.
I try not to, I guess, force it too much. But if something pops up, I jot it down because I will forget. I have tons of videos and on my phone too of just me playing random things that'll never turn into songs, but maybe one day they will.
Right. Right. Well, that's a good thing about having your phone, is that you've always got a device
Oh
to
yeah,
either take a voice memo or whatever, to go
right.
shoot an idea. Yeah.
Except Apple's now charging me for iCloud storage because I
Oh,
got too many videos on my phone. I got to pay monthly for
that's
it. But
right.
I have them.
Oh man. So we've got Jarrett. Looks like Jarrett is joining.
Yep, that's Jarrett.
Hey,
Hey,
Jarrett.
Jarrett.
Can you hear us, Jarrett?
Hi,
Hey,
on here. I'm
awesome.
listening to you guys talk.
Cool. So
You guys are great. Yeah.
thanks. Well, did you have any questions you wanted to ask?
I'm just really interested in John Michael's creative process, and being his friend, I don't ask him very much about how he writes songs, or how these ideas come about. So really, this is all very interesting for me. So I'll leave you guys to it.
Okay.
I love it.
All right, cool.
Thanks, Jarrett. Jarrett
So,
is the he runs Jet Plastic Recordings, who did our first couple 7-inch records,
oh,
and he's helping
fantastic.
us out with Chapels, so it'll be distributed through Jet Plastic.
Oh, fantastic. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So, speaking of like, what kind of physical mediums are you going to like distribute?
So we already ordered the CDs, classic jewel case CDs, because I wanted those. Yep, and then there'll be a 12-inch vinyl that will be out we'll have it at the release show on December 2nd, and then it'll be in stores mid-December
Awesome.
through Jet Plastics. Yeah, so we're really excited about that. We weren't sure if we were going to be able to pull it off because everything's so backed up, but
Yeah.
it's looking good. We're on track so far. So
All right. Cool. Well,
yeah.
hopefully that pans
And
out.
then it'll obviously be streaming everywhere the day
Right.
of. So December 1st, it'll be available everywhere. Bandcamp and Apple and Spotify.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, wanted to kind of just rewind a little bit. How did the Idiot Kids come to be? How did the band form?
So I knew Nick through high school. We went to high school together, and our friend Ryan played drums. And one day we were just jamming, and it sounded good. And Nick had a bass, and he hadn't learned how to play it yet. But we just started hanging out and learning some cover songs, and it just sounded good, and we were having fun. So I had always wanted to start a band called the Idiot Kids because when I was 14, I was and still am very obsessed with Elliott Smith, and he used that phrase "idiot kid" a lot on his self-titled record. And I was like, that sounds like a punk band. So if I'm ever in a band, that's what I'm going to call it. So yeah, we were just jamming and hanging out, and sounded good, and was like, well, let's try and see if this turns into something. And so we started practicing like once or twice a week, and yeah, it just kind of formed its own thing. We just started writing, and we weren't really trying to be a punk band or a garage band or whatever. It just kind of, that was the direction that we were going. That was the music we liked, and that was the energy that was taking on when we were jamming. It was getting faster and heavier, and that was just kind of what we were connecting to. And I think me at the time when I started the band, I was still closeted, so there was a lot of anger and stuff that I needed to get out, that I was still holding on to. But yeah, so it just kind of shaped. And then once Andrew joined the band in 2017, it kind of then took on another form, with his style of drumming. So yeah, it just started with, we were just hanging out and playing music. And then this guy, John Quillen from a band called Absentees, was like, hey, I heard you started a band. Do you guys want to play February, whatever? I was like, we don't even have anything written yet. He was like, you can do it. So we booked the show, and we wrote 2 songs, an instrumental, and then we did 2 covers. And I was like outside in the snow with like one of those yellow like legal pad pieces of paper, and I'm trying to like finish the lyrics to a verse because we hadn't finished the song yet, but it pushed us to like get started.
Right.
And then people were like, we got a good response. We were like, okay, so this could work out. And then it was just kept on going from there.
Awesome. So what did you take away from that very first gig with the band? What was the learning experience for you?
I mean, it was really just getting thrown in the deep end. It was like your older brother kicking you into the pool, and you don't know how to swim yet,
Right.
but you're in the pool, so you better learn how to swim. That's what it felt like. It was, I had played in other bands like here and there. I had played coffee shops and stuff like that. When I was a teenager and I was learning how to play guitar, I was, I was hell bent on just being a singer songwriter. Elliott Smith, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But once I started playing with like other friends' bands and just jamming with people at parties, it was just like, there's not a better feeling than when you're playing with friends. You could do it all yourself, but it's not as fun.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. It just kind of happened.
That's
kind
awesome.
of lost my train of thought of where we were going with that. I don't even remember what the question was.
Yeah, it was more about like, what did you take away from that very first gig? But it was the experience of it just being thrown into it and kicked and saying, I got to move forward and keep doing this. That's awesome. So, you mentioned you kind of got into what I was going to ask you next is like, what was the inspiration to want to play music? I mean, because there's people that want to, pick up a guitar and learn it and maybe play some songs. Mm-hmm. And it's a whole nother level to want to like perform in front of people. So what was your inspiration to do that?
Well, at first, when I first started playing music, I played percussion for my dad's church. I like bongos, shaker, tambourine, that type of thing. And then I learned how to play the drums through that, on top of like doing trumpet in band. So I was always like drawn to playing music. I always felt connected to it ever since I was probably like 3 or 4. I remember running around the house singing oldies and stuff with my grandma. She had like that whole set of Time Life CDs that it was like
Oh,
number
yeah.
one hits from like 1948 to 70 or something.
Right.
So I grew up with like the Beach Boys and the Beatles and a lot of all those number one hits from like golden oldies stuff. So I was always a singer. And then I got into drumming, and then it was when I was around like 15 or 16 where I wanted to learn guitar. So yeah, it's just always been a part of my life, and it's always been something that I've been drawn to. And then I think once I started getting older and I started listening to stuff that wasn't gospel and oldies, which is kind of the only thing that was, if it wasn't sold at the Christian bookstore, we weren't allowed to buy it, basically. Right. So once you get older and you have friends and you're getting music from them, I remember my uncle made a mix CD for my dad that I had found like under the computer, like in the desk. And that had Radiohead on it. It had Elliott Smith. It had this hardcore band called Zayo on it, and a bunch of bands from the Netherlands, just kind of like weird, like indie rock stuff. And so I listened to that, and I used to listen to that kind of on repeat when I was like 12 years old, my like little boombox. And that was kind of like the first time I felt like connected to music, where it was like speaking to me in a different way that wasn't just kind of like radio music or whatever. Yeah, so ever since then, I felt a need to talk about things that I couldn't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And music was a way for me to access those feelings, those emotions, those thoughts, in a way that like I couldn't really do any way else. So it was almost a compulsion. Like if I didn't learn how to play guitar and I didn't teach myself how to play piano or whatever, like I wouldn't be able to get these thoughts across. And there's a discovery in songwriting, where you start, I think, analyzing things in your life or thoughts that you have that I wouldn't have been able to access in any other way had I like not dove deeper and like, what am I trying to say? How do I want to say it? And how can I use melody or rhythm or harmony to say it in a different way to communicate that? Because bands like Elliott Smith, or artists like Elliott Smith, bands like Radiohead, they spoke to me in that type of way. So yeah, it was a compulsion.
That's great. Speaking of Radiohead, do you remember, you came from a religious household where I'm going to guess, you weren't, well, you've kind of mentioned that you really weren't able to, kind of listen to things that you would normally if you were just experimenting on your own. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what the very first, and I'm thinking of Radiohead, but I don't know if it was the first album, but what was the first kind of punk rock music that you listened to? Because you mentioned that the band kind of naturally gravitated that way, even though you were interested in singer-songwriter. What were some of those early influences for you?
So the early punk stuff was, like I said, we were only allowed to buy stuff from the Christian bookstore. So there was like this kind of goofy, kind of Blink-182 knockoff band called Reliant K. Okay. So I remember them. There was another kind of goofy ska band called Five Iron Frenzy. So that was like when I was like probably like 11, 12 years old or whatever. Yeah. And then the Tony Hawk Pro Skater soundtracks, most of like the people my age were kind of exposed to a lot of punk music through that. Yeah. So yeah, there was definitely that. As far as like albums that I heard where I was like, oh, I want to make punk music. Yeah. I want to like, yeah, those were albums like Fugazi's Repeater was an early one that I was like, oh shit, this is next level. Against Me's Searching for a Former Clarity was another one. Agent Orange's first album, which that stemmed from songs off of Tony Hawk. Yeah, really like Fugazi, Against Me, the Stooges, like the first Stooges album. Yeah, those were the ones that like really spoke to me, and I think it was how raw they were, and they weren't like like I love early Green Day and stuff like that, but there's a polish to that.
Yeah, for sure.
And Fugazi, just there was like a funk to it, and like the way that they did punk was totally different. There was, with Against Me, it was like this really like angry folk kind of punk. So that's more what drew me to it. Like obviously there were bands like Blink 182 and stuff growing up that were huge, but like it was so clean and it was like very produced, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I was drawn to like the dirt of it and like the rawness, and like even with Radiohead, like Johnny Greenwood's guitar playing is so weird, and that's why I love it, you know. I like when people can like attack things from like a perspective that you haven't heard before. So yeah, I think that's what like really. And also I was like an angry, sad little teenager who like was in the closet. So it was like I needed something angry to yell about. And punk gave me an out, like a medium to do it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So if the Idiot Kids could play anywhere in the world, where would you, what venue would be like the musical pilgrimage for you guys?
Venue, I don't know. It'd probably be like somewhere in Europe or something, maybe like the Cavern Club where the Beatles first played. Like there's something like, obviously that's a magical place in itself because that's where the Beatles came from, and like I said, I grew up on that. But it also just looks like a gross little cellar in a basement, which we're normally playing in the basements anyways. So it'd probably be like the Cavern Club, and then it would probably be Against Me would be headlining. We'd be playing Ezra Furman. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're
I've
like
heard the name, but I don't think I've actually listened to their music.
Incredible songwriter, kind of indie rock punk stuff. I think they would be playing. And then like, I mean, if we're going all out, like
let's go.
Maybe Bob Dylan would show up.
All right.
Like, that would be cool. And like maybe he'd play a song, but then he'd leave because he was pissed off at us for some reason. Like I would want like angry, kind of grumpy Bob Dylan to play. Yeah, that would be it. Ezra, Against Me, and then Bob Dylan.
An angry Bob Dylan.
Yeah, an angry Bob Dylan.
Awesome. So do you have any like pre-show rituals, things you've got to do before you get on stage?
Yeah. Well, I've always, well, not always, I guess since probably like 2013, I've always worn makeup, or sometimes I perform in full drag. Sometimes I perform in like more Rocky Horror drag. Sometimes it's just my normal look. But there's always like, I always need to put like some sort of mask on. And I think that allows me to, again, access a side of myself that I wouldn't normally in my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
So I usually, sometimes it's at the venue just because of time. Like if I'm working, you have to go and whatever, I'll bring some makeup and a mirror with me. But usually I'm at home and I either listen to Lou Reed's Transformer album or the soundtrack to Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Oh yeah.
And there's just something about both those albums that are like so queer and so like just classic glam rock that would kind of put me in that headspace of like, okay, I'm about to go on stage and I need to access that side of me that, like I said, is not just an everyday version of me. I need to access the performer. I need to access like the songwriter, the whatever. So yeah, it's either Lou Reed's Transformer or Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and I'll listen to those on repeat. Sometimes switch it back and forth between them, and I'll start getting ready and throwing my face on. And the times where I haven't done that, or I haven't worn like my platform boots, or like where I haven't been able to like fully kind of get into it,
right,
those shows just don't normally feel right. Like they feel like there's something missing. I have trouble kind of accessing that side of me. So it's not even like a like a costume or anything. It's like it's a necessity. It's like I have to, these things allow me to access that kind of raw primal side of myself that needs to exist in order to like put on the best show that I can. Um, we don't we don't ever use set lists. We we rarely sound check even.
Oh,
We're pretty quick at it because like we want to kind of, I mean, also the places we're playing are usually very small clubs where the sound check's very quick anyways.
right, right.
But yeah, we're usually like throw up on stage, like get our stuff set up as quickly as possible and then just go. And
Yeah.
then I'll yell out the first song, we'll play, crowd will clap or they won't clap, and then you do the next song and the next song, and you just keep yelling it out until they say one more song, and then you're done.
That's
So
crazy.
that's how we like to keep it, because like I said, even with the songwriting, like I want to keep it as like raw and honest as possible, like
Yeah,
every
yeah.
aspect. So that's how we like to do our live shows too, is like just go up there and just start playing.
Yeah.
And that seems to like, it's getting thrown in the deep end. It's
Right.
you're on stage, you got to go. Let's come up with something. When it's too planned out or it's too produced or whatever, it's like it just doesn't feel right for
Yeah.
me.
But you
Like
gotta
I
have,
can't access that side.
but I gotta mention, if you like all of you as a band then have to have like superior amount of confidence in you just knowing all those tunes you're gonna rip and go for it. Do you ever throw covers in there too?
Yeah.
In the
Yeah,
midst?
we have a
Yeah,
few
that's
like,
crazy.
yeah, we have a few that we cycle through. As far as covers, we do Bloodstains by Agent Orange. We recently are doing Black Me Out by Against Me, which that'll be out this week. It'll be out once this airs.
Uh,
Um, yeah, and then we do like a Neutral Milk Hotel cover, and we've been doing a few other covers. We did The Cure, Just Like Heaven once. We got a Black Sabbath cover we still haven't played yet. But yeah, we have a few that like, because
yeah,
every once in a while you just want to get like the
exactly.
crowd to sing along with you, especially if it's like a place we haven't played before or like a city we haven't played before.
Well, you
It's
guys,
nice to throw in those covers because then you can kind of grab the crowd's attention and then play your best songs right after the cover or something.
right, right. Well, you guys should do Angry Inch. You would, I'm sure, would crush
Oh,
that
I would
song.
love to. We did I think it was like 2016. We did there's this thing called Creepy Cheapy, which I'm
Yeah,
sure, yeah, you're from Michigan,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we did that as the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So
Oh,
we did
cool.
like 5 or 6 songs from Rocky Horror, and that was so much fun. And someone said that like you should do Hedwig too, and it's like, oh
Hell
man,
yeah,
no, we need a
yeah.
bigger band. We'd probably need more than a 3-piece. We need some piano and all that. But yeah, oh,
Yeah,
I would love to. It's a dream of mine to like play Frankenfurter or Hedwig or something on stage. But
yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, I'm kind of curious as far as you've got the new album, but what about shows? Anything coming up in for like end of December into next year?
yeah, so we're gonna be down in Columbus, Ohio, the Roomba Cafe, I believe is what it's called, December 29th. We're trying to set something up for like either Chicago or Detroit for that weekend too.
Cool.
I think we're gonna try and get Chicago by then. And then in February we're heading to Indianapolis. Um, and we got another local show in February too. Right now it's just really been like trying to get this album out, trying to get these mixes done, trying to get the album artwork done, trying to
Right.
like do interviews and press and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
uh yeah, shows have kind of taken a backseat up until the release show. That's kind of like we're putting all our eggs in that basket. So yeah, end of December, and then I'm sure in January we'll have some local shows up. Like we'll be posting about it on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. But like things are in the works. And yeah, we're hoping to tour in the spring.
Awesome.
Do at least like East Coast, Midwest, a couple weeks at least. Yeah, fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
Yeah. Fantastic. That'd be
Yeah.
awesome. Very cool. So I was wondering about what was I wondering? Oh, um, As far as you mentioned that, the album was totally DIY. Um, any plans to do like other types of projects like that, like fully that way going forward, or do you think you'll actually end up using some studios and that kind of thing going in the future?
I don't know. We kind of love it. We kind of love the freedom that we have with doing it all ourselves. And the first couple sessions were definitely way more stressful than
Yeah.
the later ones. I had a computer that I bought. Well, I had one from like 2009 that died on me during COVID, so I had to buy another one because, like I said, out of necessity, I had to like keep
Keep
making
going.
demos and I had to keep playing music.
Right.
So I bought a computer, and then yeah, I bought like, I mean, most of the mics I bought were like used on Guitar Center's website, and I bought like a Tascam board that only had 8 channels on it. So we basically just bought the bare minimum. I was like, okay, I know I need these mics to record the drums and guitar and bass because I wanted to record it all live as far as like the basic tracks and then do the overdubs and stuff later. But I wanted to capture that this is a band playing in a basement. This
Right.
is like keep that feel that we have at our live shows. So yeah, it was stressful at first, but then once we recorded the last couple songs, we kind of like got into like the swing of it, and I've just fallen in love with like recording and mixing. And like I was asking my brother, he made an album back in 2014. I was like, send it to me, I'll remix it because I just want to. Like I need to get better at it because
Right.
like that's what I want to do. Like apart from doing Idiot Kids, it's like I want to record other bands. I want to like go to other people's practice spaces and be like, let me record your demos. And like I'm cheap right now. Like I just want to do it.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously if this album takes off and like someone big scoops us up and was like, you want to record your next album at Abbey Road? I'd be like, yes. I don't want to record it. Yes, let's
Right.
break out the Neumanns and record at Abbey Road 100%. But if we're still more just underground stuff, then like yeah, I love doing it. And then Zach Ships, who they run RV Audio Lab in Ferndale. We recorded our first album and EP with them, and I just loved their sound, and they just kind of nailed it for the first time. Like I said, we recorded like a demo CD early on, and it just didn't sound like us. And yeah, they just nailed the sound. So I sent the mixes to them to master. I was like, put your final touch magic on it. And so yeah, so I know that I have Zach. If I have an idea that I can't pull off in a basement or something, I will definitely go to his studio because
Yeah.
he definitely gets us and gets that sound just kind of like correct. But yeah, if Abbey Road is an option, or if like Steve Albini wants to like record our next album,
All right.
we'll go back in the studio for sure.
So on top of doing the recordings yourself, and like you mentioned, doing the interviews and that kind of stuff, you're also doing the marketing for your band, and I'm curious about like how has that been for you? Like, what has that process been like? Has it been just like an agonizing like root canal, or has it been something where you've kind of like, oh, I kind of get what I'm supposed to do here, and I'm kind of enjoying it?
It's so for the first single, for the White Flag single, I was like, okay, we have a very, very limited budget. So we'll save the PR for like the later single and the album. And I'm going to just do this all myself. So it was a lot of Googling. It was a lot of asking friends online, like who does reviews, who does interviews, and people sending me like, oh, you could try this person, you could try that person. It was a lot of just like Googling punk radio stations, college radio stations, and just sending out like 100 emails to everybody. And yeah, it was just kind of hoping for the best. Some of it has been agonizing. This has been cool, like doing this interview. And then I did one with Lori Stratton a couple of days ago, and that was really cool. So the interviews I've actually been like really enjoying because I can just sit down and talk about my music.
Yeah.
When it comes to like creating like an electronic press kit and like writing a bio, like I'm just using quotes that other people have said about it. Cause like, as far as like trying to talk about like myself as a product or trying to like present myself in that way is so
Yeah.
weird. But like, I get it that it's like, it's a part of the game, and like, you got to like put your best foot forward and try and do that. But like, that's networking has never been my thing. That's why we've been a band for 10 plus years, and now we're just starting to like, I'm now just starting to figure it out. It's like, oh, I just had to put in the work
Right.
and send out some emails. But
Right.
so yeah, I mean, it's a necessary thing, and like, I get to meet cool people and do interviews and stuff. But yeah, it was definitely very foreign for me.
Yeah.
But it's not been all bad.
Yeah. So now, like, what's your preferred method of like staying in touch with your fans? How do you try to keep them engaged? Is it all social media? Are you doing any
For
type
the
of
for the
like
most part, it's been just like through Instagram and Facebook. So far, I'm trying to push more for the Bandcamp thing, because
Mhm.
like, I like that, especially with this, because it's DIY, and like, I like the fact that like they do Bandcamp Fridays where like they don't take a percentage and everything, and like we can put up our merch on there, and like, so I would like people to get more involved on there, because I know that like there are communities on there where like you can share reviews and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, social media is just kind of the necessary evil when it comes to
Right.
trying to get art out there.
Yeah, I was
the
just
kind
curious
of-
if you guys had thought about like newsletters or email kind of things. The more it's sort of an old school approach, but I think it's kind
Yeah.
of circling its way back in some.
Yeah, I've seen some other people doing it. I actually honestly have not even thought about it. But like, knowing myself and how much I procrastinate things, I don't know how regular the newsletter would be, but it would definitely be something to look into.
Right.
I don't know. I like just meeting people at shows, and like,
Yeah.
I like that old school way of networking, even though I'm also terrible at that. But that's the best way for me. Like, I just like meeting new people, and hopefully we'll just like be able to tour more after this album. Like, I just want to get out to as many cities and find new people who might have fun with us, and then like meet other bands that we might be able to collaborate with in the future or something. So yeah, but for now it's mainly Instagram and Facebook, and but yeah, maybe I'll look into a newsletter.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll stick to it, but
It could be
I might enjoy it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. A one-off here and there every once in a while. You
Right.
go, oh, man, maybe here's something, you know?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, John Michael, I really appreciate you being on Fans with Bands.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah. I've got one last question, and that is pineapple or no pineapple on pizza?
I'm a no pineapple on pizza.
All right. You got a favorite?
I'm a classic cheese and pepperoni, or like margarita style pizza.
Excellent.
Those are my love pineapple in smoothies.
Not on pizza.
Not as much.
I'm with you. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, John Michael, thanks again for being on Fans with Bands.
Of course. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
All right, cool. Many thanks to John Michael for joining me on this episode of Fans with Bands. I really dug the power pop punk of the Idiot Kids. It was so good to talk with John Michael about the band and their new album called Chapels, which is out now on Jet Plastic Recordings. The new album is jammed with high energy tunes. You just can't miss this thing. Be sure to get your copy today and mark your calendars for February 17th, where you can see the Idiot Kids live at RAWR, a celebration of MySpace, at the Spread in Detroit. See the show notes for all the details and the links. Bands are nothing without you, the fans. Purchasing music and merchandise is critical to their survival. If you can help out your favorite bands, please do. If you're in Michigan, consider following the Playing in Detroit Area Tonight and SE for Southeast Michigan Music Facebook pages. They are fantastic places for fans and bands to support each other and share our combined love of music. Thank you all so much for listening. Be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast service to get each and every episode of Fans with Bands. Spread the word by rating the show, telling your friends, telling your neighbors, telling your family, telling your priest, tell everyone, and leave a comment. We want to hear what you think. You can keep in touch by following us on social media. This is a Life in Michigan production. Until next time, be well and kick out the jam.